Hi all, my name is Kaylee, and today I am going to talk about Firebase. The presentation is called Ready, Set, Prod, using Firebase to create a production React app for under $1. Whoops. So a little bit about me. I am the CEO of chattycathy.com. I'm also a part-time graduate student at the University of Denver, getting a degree in technology management. In the past, I've worked as a full stack engineer as well as a technology consultant. And I am a coding bootcamp veteran, so definitely super proud of that. Got my undergraduate in English, so one of those people that never really thought they'd be doing this, but I'm just like so grateful to be in the technology field and really love it. So let's go ahead and begin. Something that I definitely really want to emphasize in this talk is that I totally understand that starting a new project can be really scary and really intimidating. I've done it a lot, and I've also gone through that phase of like, I have this idea, I'm not really sure how to get it off of the ground, and I just don't really know how to start writing those first few lines of code. So at the end of this talk, I just want everyone to hopefully walk away with just a sigh of relief and a feeling of like, all right, like I can do this. I can really start focusing on my idea and really explore what this new business could be. So to start off, what is Firebase really? I like to think of it as the one console to rule them all. It's a collection of tools that sit on top of the Google Cloud Engine. And basically what it does is it takes a lot of the really common processes that we deal with all the time as engineers and makes them super easy. So I like to talk about software engineering and architecture like it's building a house. And sometimes you want to build a custom house where you are customizing everything down to the kitchen faucets. And sometimes you're like, you know what? I don't really care what the kitchen faucet looks like. I just want a bathroom that works. And that second scenario is really where Firebase shines. And it offers a lot of really great things out of the box. The first being user authentication. So that's definitely something that can be really scary. As we are starting a company, we want to make sure that people's data is really secure. And the Firebase tools around user authentication are really awesome. They also offer things like a native non-relational database, really easy hosting, which I'm excited to get into later. Really easy serverless backend, great analytics because everything is built on top of the Google Cloud provider. Really easy to start to integrate with Google Analytics as well as third-party integrations like Stripe and MailChimp, as well as really great environment management. So I'll go into each of these in more detail throughout this presentation. So to kind of start off, like, why did I personally need to start using Firebase? And for me, it was when I wanted to get my startup off the ground. So my startup is called Chatty Cathy, and it's basically a tool to help people stay in contact better with one another by providing some like fun science-backed conversation starters, a lot of cool stuff that I won't really get into. But as I was starting to build this, I had some pretty basic requirements that I needed to meet. The first being easy phone number verification. All of these messages get sent over SMS, so I needed to hold people's phone numbers as well as make sure that they actually own them. I also wanted Google verification, which is pretty standard these days. I also knew that even though this was going to start off as a small project, I wanted to make sure I had different environments in place. So a dev environment, test environment, and production environment. Because this is kind of a social app, I really wanted to use a non-relational database. I knew I was going to need image storage, and most importantly, I was going to start off building this myself, but if things went well, I would hypothetically have a lot of team members in the next few years, and I didn't want to rebuild everything once the company started to grow. So I needed the code and everything to be managed by one person, me, or maybe 100 if I get to that point. As well as I wanted it to be able to support one person, my mom as the first user, or up to millions of users if I needed to. And so after looking through all those requirements, that's kind of how I ended up at Firebase. The best part about Firebase, in addition to it like being super, super easy to set everything up and manage it, deploy everything out, it's basically free. So something that I've definitely gotten into in the past, and I'm sure others have as well, is you start a new project and you're working with AWS or something, and you get a $50 bill and you're like not really sure where it came from. Firebase is really, really transparent about where they're going to charge you, and they have a really, really generous free tier as well. So this is a screenshot of my costs in a fully flushed out production application. So it cost me less than $1 to run this for about 300 users. 300 users now, and it was 100 users back in March 2021. So how do you start a Firebase project to begin with? So at its very essence, and you can do this with a lot of different languages, this presentation is all about a React web app. You basically just set up a configuration file. So you tell your React app what your Firebase API key is, some different things about the domains and project keys, and then you go into the console. And whenever you deploy code out in your React app, you'll kind of see it immediately in the console, which is really, really, really great. So you can be super, super technical, or you can be someone just getting started in development, and you'll easily have a GUI to help you understand how everything's set up, which I think is pretty great. As kind of mentioned, one of my favorite features is user authentication. For a lot of reasons. I think when you're starting a company, one of the scariest things can be like, all right, like I know this thing's pretty small, but I don't want to get anyone's data. I don't want to put anything at risk of being hacked. And so the fact that it comes with built-in user authentication tools is, in my mind, absolutely vital. And you set it up super easy. This is just an example of code that I wrote to set up and add a new username and password. There's some native methods that just come out of the box. You pass in that information, and then this is where you see it in the console. So you yourself, as the engineer, never have access to anyone's passwords, which in my mind is really ideal. Whenever anyone updates it, you just never see it. And so that really makes sure that your application is secure, not just for you, but maybe as you start to hire developers down the road as well. The next is hosting, and Firebase is so great at helping to handle hosting. So you literally don't write any code at all, and you do everything through the console itself. So as long as you own the domain, which you can configure it with any domain provider. I used Google just to stay consistent, and it is a little bit easier if you do just buy a Google domain. All you really do is put it into the console and then add some DNS settings, and that's pretty much it. This was so awesome for me because I started Chatty Cathy after a different startup where I decided I was going to do all the hosting myself, and I deployed everything out on Kubernetes, and then I did all the settings, and even for some reason decided that I was going to manage the SSL certificates. And yeah, that was a lot of work, and sometimes it broke. We're here, it's virtually no work, and you know that it'll stay up and running. The next is Firestore. So Firestore is Firebase's native non-relational database. So it is the name of the database, and it actually has its own querying language as well. One of the coolest things about Firestore, I think, is that if you are starting up a project or you have an MVP and you just really want to get things up and running, in order to query or access or delete, edit, whatever through the database, you don't actually have to set up a whole backend. You can if you want to, but all of Firestore is queryable securely through the front end. So on the left is just some code that's kind of an example of that, of both how to get one of our Cathy chats and update one. And then on the right is what the console looks like. So this is the database. This is what it looks like within the console. And within here as well, if you just need to make quick fixes, you can edit and delete this data too. So it's really great to be able to visualize that. And it's great that it comes out of the box as well. So the next thing is that Firebase also gives you really, really easy access to a serverless backend. So there's so much to go into in regards to a serverless backend, and I'm sure that there are other wonderful talks within this conference about it that you should definitely check out. But at a very high level, it's basically just these little methods that you write that get exposed as endpoints. And Firebase comes with one of those out of the box as well. And so for this, you do need to have a backend configured. Mine is in Node. So on the left is an example of a serverless function. So this function gets exported out, gets exposed as an endpoint, and then it gets shown here on the right-hand side as well. So on the right side is all of my different endpoints. I do have the specific ones blocked out just for security reasons. But what's really, really, really awesome, especially about this, is you can look at the health and the logs and the usage of each of your endpoints, and they are all in one place. It seems so simple, it seems so obvious, but it is one of my favorite things about this. And again, every single thing that I'm going through is accessible through this left-hand kind of burger menu. So yeah, you don't actually need to, like set up all these different features within the console. It just gets brought to you immediately. The next one, which is, again, just like crazy easy, is third-party integrations. So they have this thing called extensions. And for a lot of things, you like literally click a button. So if you want to sync up with MailChimp, and every time you get a new user through that user authentication, it just gets done automatically as long as you have the extension, which is so cool. There's a lot you can do on top of it. If you do need more configuration, you can hook into a MailChimp API. But if you just need something simple, then you just click a button. One of my favorites is we use BigQuery in order to analyze a lot of our data. And all I needed to do was click a button to add BigQuery into my project. And then my data analytics co-founder was able to take everything and create some really, really cool reports for us. And I like literally didn't have to write any code, which is kind of every developer's dream to not have to write code for every single little feature request. The next one is the ability to set up different environments. So as mentioned, I needed to be able to set up a develop environment, a test environment, and a production environment. And so you can just do that with any dependencies that you work well with. So I used Crossend and Krakow. And then you basically just set them up as different projects. So you can see Chatty Cathy is my production environment, and Chatty Cathy Dev is my develop environment. And so I'm able to have totally different databases, but all connecting to the same code, which has been super, super useful as I want to test out new features. And so the big takeaway with Firebase is really that the code that you write while using it is clean, concise, and secure. And the console gives you access to a readable, user-friendly interface. And that's pretty much it. So whether you have a really technical or a non-technical team, you can share all of this great stuff with them, and they can look at the console and understand what's going on. They can play around. They can be a huge part of the product. I personally believe that there really shouldn't be this huge barrier in technology between people who know how to write code and people who don't. We all care about the product. We all care so much about what we're building, and we all deserve to have the same access to it. And that is absolutely what Firebase gives us. So to kind of close it all out, this is a quote that I found from a really, really old white dude. It's like 500 years old, but I thought it was still super relevant. So do not wait. The time will never be just right. Start where you stand and work with whatever tools you may have at your command. It's just so incredible sometimes how different ideas that humans had a long, long time ago can be relevant to us today. And so whatever idea you have, whatever business you want to build, whatever concept you want to explore, now's the time to do it. And I hope with this presentation, you feel a little bit more comfortable with Firebase and you feel like you can get it off the ground and do everything you want to do with it. So thank you so much. This is just my contact information in case anyone wants to reach out. I'd love talking about this stuff. And yeah, Thanks for listening.